All right, let's talk about logic. But forget the dusty old textbooks. I want you to think about logic as the operating system for your brain. The essential software you need to run clearer, sharper, and just more effective thoughts.
I mean, we've all been there, right? Where it feels like your own thinking is just messy, maybe a little chaotic, and sometimes, let's be honest, just flat out wrong. That's because our minds are kind of hardwired with all these cognitive shortcuts and biases. So, this is all about installing a much needed upgrade.
So why do we even need something formal like logic? Well, it's because our minds, as brilliant as they are, often take the easy way out. We jump to conclusions, we follow gut feelings, and those can seriously lead us down the wrong path. Logic is the framework we can use to tame all that chaos. Really, you can think of logic as a kind of quality control for your thoughts. This isn't about being a robot, not at all. It's about adding a layer of discipline. Logic is the tool that helps you tell the difference between a conclusion that's built on solid ground and one that's, just a guess or a product of some hidden bias. Every strong building is made from reliable materials. Well, the exact same thing goes for arguments. So let's go ahead and open up our new toolkit and see what the fundamental components are, the raw materials we need to build any sound case, right from the ground up. Okay, first up, axioms. The best way to think of these is like the concrete foundation of a skyscraper. They are the absolute starting points, the self-evident truths that we all just kind of agree on without needing proof. Like a thing can't be both true and untrue at the same time. Everything else we're going to build rests right on top of these. So if axioms are the foundation, then premises are the load-bearing walls we build on them. These are the specific claims and propositions that really form the structure of our argument. And this is super important. The strength of your entire case depends on whether these premises are actually true. A simple premise might be something like, dark clouds often lead to rain. So what stops our premises from just being wild guesses? Well, that's where evidence comes in. This is the real-world data, the facts, the stuff that backs up our statements. Evidence is what anchors our argument to reality and stops it from just floating away into pure speculation. For our dark clouds premise, the evidence might be the weather forecast saying there's a 90% chance of rain. So you can see how it all stacks together, right? You start with those unshakable axioms, you build on them with premises that are backed by solid evidence, and from there, you can logically arrive at a sound conclusion. It's a clean, disciplined process, all the way from the foundation to the rooftop. Okay, so we've got our building materials. Now we need the machines, the engines that are actually going to put it all together. Let's look at the three main engines of reasoning. And to make this super clear, we'll use a fun little example I'm calling the case of the missing cookies. Here they are, our three main engines: deductive, inductive, and abductive reasoning. And probably the most important thing to notice right away is how they each give you a different level of certainty. And this is so key, because you wouldn't use a plausible guess when you need an absolute guarantee, right? Knowing which engine to use and when, now that's the mark of a really sharp thinker. Let's see how this actually works with our cookie case. With deduction, if your premises are true, the conclusion is absolutely guaranteed. So if John was the only one in the room, he must have eaten the cookies, period. Now, with induction, you're spotting a pattern to make a generalization. Every time John's around, cookies vanish, so he's the likely culprit. And finally, abduction. Here, you're making the best guess based on the clues, kind of like a detective. The cookies are gone, there are crumbs on his shirt. The most plausible story is that John ate them. And here it is, the classic example of deductive reasoning, the syllogism. It's like a perfect little template. If premise 1 is true and premise 2 is true, then the conclusion has to be true. There's literally no other option. This structure guarantees a valid conclusion, and that is an incredibly powerful thing. But hey, let's not sleep on abduction. This is basically the engine of discovery. When a doctor is trying to diagnose an illness or a scientist is forming a new hypothesis, they're using abductive reasoning. They're looking at all the clues they have and forming the most likely explanation to start investigating. It's how we make progress. All right, so we've built our argument. But is it actually any good? Now comes the crucial part, the quality control phase. It's time to really stress test our reasoning and make sure it's totally airtight. So the first thing we've got to look for are fallacies. Think of these like common bugs or viruses in our mental operating system.
They're these recurring errors, like attacking the person making an argument instead of the argument itself, that can completely destroy an otherwise good-looking case. So, how do we fight these mental viruses? Well, the antidote is critical thinking. This is the powerful antivirus software we need to run to actively scan for, identify, and just get rid of fallacies, both in our own thinking and in the arguments we hear from other people. So here's a really practical checklist you can use. First, check for validity. Is the structure solid? Does your conclusion actually follow from your premises, or did you take a huge leap somewhere? Second, check for zero contradiction. Do any of your claims cancel each other out? You can't argue that the sky is both blue and not blue. And third, check for necessary conditions. Have you actually met all the requirements for your conclusion to be true? Running this simple check can make your logic so much stronger. Okay, let's bring this all home. We've gathered our materials, we've used our reasoning engines, and we've run our quality checks. So, what's the end goal here? What's the real payoff for all this hard mental work? See, the goal isn't just about being right all the time or winning every debate. It's much bigger than that. It's about achieving rationality, and what that really means is aligning our thinking with our goals so we can make decisions that actually get us the best outcomes. It's about thinking effectively so we can live effectively. And the ultimate state we're shooting for here is true understanding. It's that moment when all the separate pieces, the axioms, the evidence, the conclusions, they all click together into one single coherent model inside your mind. A model that's consistent, has no contradictions, and actually reflects reality. That right there is the true power of a well-run mental operating system. So, I want to leave you with this question. Think about a belief you have or a big decision you're facing right now. What happens if you actually apply this toolkit to it? Go on, check your premises, really examine your evidence, and test your reasoning. What do you think you might discover?